Welcome to Hot Topics After Dark with your host, Q Wiggins, architect and survival enthusiast, and Jeffrey DeShawn, strategic advisor, coach, and author. Let's get talking.
Hey, Quita.
Hey, boo.
How you doing?
Fine. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Yeah, no, so Quita and I have been having a lot of conversations, as though I'm sure many people are having conversations, given the signs of the times and the just lived circumstance we find ourselves in this present moment. And it's just sparked so much reflection. And those of you that may follow some of my posts that I do on throughout the week, Tuesday morning pep talk, just lots of reflection happening. I know with my coaching clients, lots of reflection happening. And for a lot of folks, taking them back to a really whole and spiritual place. And so Queen and I have been having a lot of conversations in that space. And we decided, you know what, Deborah, if we talking, other people talking, and you know what, let's talk. So we're here today to just have a conversation and talk. And yeah, so Quita has been, y'all believe in being led by the inspiration. So I'm gonna let inspiration lead. So Quita, what's been on your mind?
So, me and you been having these talks for a while. We've been having these talks ever since it was time to start gathering up all the food and, getting all the tissue. Luckily, I had a tissue subscription, so I was okay because for some reason I got over 100 rolls of tissue.
Thank you for sharing that with the people.
Yeah. So anyway, we've been having these conversations ever since everything has been started, and it's so clear. Every day is becoming clearer and clearer that it's something spiritual happening. And we all feeling it. Even before any of this happened, we could all start to feel something shifting, something spiritual shifting. And it was a feeling. It wasn't something that was being put on us. It was just a feeling.
More with that feeling. That's good.
Yeah, it was just a feeling, like something. Something was happening, something was shifting for the greater good. Something had to change. And things have been changing. We're noticing that, young people aren't going to church anymore. For some reason, they don't want to be there. And we got to ask ourselves, why is that? Why is it they don't want to be tapped into that source to fulfill them spiritually? Because they're still being filled spiritually. They're just doing it through other methods. And it's just right now feels like what is it called? What's the term? Juxtaposition? When something is sort of at a peak, something is happening right now. And it's clear that something is happening right now.
It is. So, we know there's some very specific things happening right now. And then, you can feel it in the, they used to say, old people used to say, you can feel it in the atmosphere. Well, I know what it does when you said there's a feeling. Yes, because you can feel
God talking, the universe talking.
Movement. You can feel churning. You can feel in the atmosphere, as the old people used to say.
The spirit is trying to guide and get us out of religion and get us into relationship.
Ooh, say more about that.
For some reason, I don't know. I think sometimes we all think that somebody is special because they have a direct line with God.
If you believe you have a line with God.
Yeah.
Right.
But the thing is that all of us have the ability to have that same direct connection. All of us are his children. All of us are made of the same things that the universe are made of. All of us have the same water running through our body. I would say through our veins, but it's more than just our veins. It's through our whole body. And it's speaking to all of us.
It's speaking. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a firm believer, and I've talked about recently on my Tuesday morning pep talks in my Muse moment about the power of recognition and acknowledgement. It's so interesting because I think that, you know, I do think that it is an intentional awakening, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some people, if you allow it to be happening in this moment, because even on my own experience, right, there's so much that I actually know to be true about myself, or of course I know myself. More importantly, there's so much about the world external to myself, the world around me, that I know to be false, right?
Mm-hmm.
And falsely presented. Yet, because of condition, job, role, family, relationships, and I think many other people, you know, still find yourself being in what I call, you know, really battered relationships with other things outside of ourselves, right? So there's
and we being gaslit. We
there's
constantly being gaslit.
Right. So yes, see, I'm a gaslit. Like, yes, exactly. Like we have an understanding of ourselves, and even if, like I said, if it's not about understanding, a lack of understanding of ourselves, there are clearly things in our world that we know that are presented as, right, that operate as, that are false. And there are things that have occurred that have been articulated and are historically shared, even modern things, recent things, you know, war in Iraq, that are, you know, presented as fact, and certain people stand on this fact that we all know we know them to be false. But somehow we still play within them. And so, like, I don't know how when you know something be false, and you choose to pretend that it's not false, or you choose to ignore that it's not false. There's no way,
because you don't want to trust what's happening in your spirit.
Well,
because your spirit is telling you something.
Well, the lack of trust might not be there for many reasons, usually because of fear. Fear, and the fear of what, right? I often see for a lot of people, it's the comes down to the fear of the they, right? So if I share, or if I act accordingly to what I believe and I trust, what they gonna say, what they gonna do, and what are the consequences going to be for me in this lived world, right? Am I gonna have my relationship? Am I gonna still have family? Am I gonna be in isolation? For some people, am I gonna be able to keep my job? Am I gonna be able to take care of myself? And so I think that there's so many. My mama tipped me off to a word, literally a word, a couple years ago around entanglements. And that's when, before I was married, going through relationships and things. And, you know, she highlighted this word, entanglements. And I think there's a lot of us that the biggest falsehood and distraction of our life is all these entanglements. All these entanglements. We are engaged in so many things that drive us, right? So we seeking outside of ourselves to tell what we're supposed to do, when we're supposed to do it, what's right, what's wrong, what's real, what's true, that we don't know. Like, you know, and a lot of that we know. Like, if we just stop, if we could shift to seeking, you know, from external things, these things we have entangled ourselves with, and actually take a pause and be still and know. That's what, you know, it's interesting that we've been forced. The world is being forced to take a pause.
At the same time.
A good friend of mine and I used to say, we were at social events and one of us was getting reactionary and getting hot, and we might have needed to pull back. We had code word, fold your hands. He said, Jeffrey, fold your hands. Fold your hands. And I find it interesting that, you know, however you want to call it, the universe, the earth, matter, energy, you know, if you don't believe in God, is calling all of us to sit and fold our hands. And, you know, if we don't take that as an intention, right, we can just look at the crisis. There is a crisis. There's crisis in all change. There might not be crisis for you, but there's crisis for somebody in all change, right? So we got to manage the crisis, but we also have to look at the moment for what it is.
Please stay present. Please stay present.
Not what it's manufactured to be, right? So if I look, for me, when I look at it, what it is there is a worldwide medical crisis, right, that has resulted in us being to have to retreat from shared space, from us being in each other's face. Get out everybody's face and go sit and be still and get in your face and get in the face of yours, your family, your community, that which you have created. You know, I have I was inspired in meditation a couple weekends ago, and I posted it on my Instagram. Can you be still with what you have created? And I was sitting on my patio, I guess it was last weekend, thing, and I'm just sitting there, and it's like, can you be still in what you have created? We get up and we run out the house so much, you know, because we have to, our jobs, you know, our careers, advancement, our kids, developing our kids the right way. They're all involved in things. And we're always creating. But what I realized, because, you know, I spent, you know, 15 years of my life in a very active, creative mode, activity-driven mode in my work. In the early, you know, phase of my career up until, you know, about now. And that is the pattern we all get into, and we rarely take the moment, right, or force ourselves to have the moment. So many of us don't have practice in our lives or schedule or intention to take the moment to pause and be still and actually look at what we've created. Assess what we've created. Give some praise and recognition and acknowledgement to what we have created, and then decide what else we should be creating. We just so much activity, and I think we're
doing too much, and we're being duped. Again, we was talking about gaslight. We're being duped to believe that we are being bad people or insufficient if we don't gather these things. So work these 3 jobs. Make sure you have a house and food and shelter and everything, but this is what people need to do. We gotta work. But then we don't have time.
What we learned this week, we have to work, because that brother Dow has called you to work.
But we ate before the Dow. We fed ourselves before the Dow. We've
been running across the Chiron.
We housed ourselves before the Dow. We've made Dow a god, and Dow follows us. If you look at the stock market, it always goes with consumer emotion. Whatever we feel in the Dow will do is what it will do. We following it, we obeying it, we praying to it when it's following us.
It's funny, you made me think of when I was living in Mozambique. This is a wonderful restaurant called Dow. And they use that word to reference to little fishing boats. You know, they have the curved bottom. And you sit on the, you know, coast, and you see the guys, and they're fishing with their nets, and you see the little fishing boats, and they call them Dows. And the guys, you know, get out early morning when the tide is low and the water's still, and they row out to their spot. And then once they row out to their spot, you know, because you got to get out early when the water's still, because you can't row in the wave at a Dow too much. Hard work. They do it. Them strong guys. But they get out there early, and then once they out there, they out there. They out there for the rest of the day until again the evening time tide goes still. And they just, and it's just, and that's what the Dow does.
That's exactly what the Dow does. It's go with the wave, based on the wind, based on the wind of our energy. And we don't even recognize our light. Because light is energy. We don't even recognize the light that we pushing out. We don't, we can't be still. We always either thinking in the past or thinking in the future. We cannot be still, which God is demanding us to do right now, I feel. Because everybody across the globe has to finally be still at the same time.
You know what? That's a powerful reflection you just said, because my own personal life and in my former work as a social worker and now as a coach and advisor, I spend so much time working with folks, guiding folks, helping people navigate out of the past. It's either trying to navigate out the past, or trying to actively create, right, the discovery of or the manifestation of the future. Very rarely, it happens. Very rarely do I have someone who is coming, not in crisis, who's not in crisis, and who is reflecting and managing something just in the now. That just happens to be present in now. I became aware of this, right? Not in crisis per se, but I became aware of something that now I need some support and coaching and reflecting on. I've chosen to be intentional, right? Who've made the choice. I'm doing this now, not in crisis. I'm doing it now because I've been, in order to get there, and it's funny you say that, because, and those people, most of the time, for those folks that have gotten there, there are people that usually have more recently, whatever the recent is for them, gone through a transition that resulted in them having a change that required them to do something different that they weren't expected to do, didn't want to do, and usually on the job front, relationship front, that is getting out of something and then having to go sit somewhere for a while before understanding of what they were supposed to do next.
That's it.
I mean, I see it in that context. And so if you align sort of just, this framework of the knowing, as a spiritual person who believes in divine energy and all of our interconnectedness, whatever you want to call the divine for you, I know I am of source, right? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If source created this and I came of this, then I am a source, right? Whatever you want to call it, if you never take that moment to be still, particularly in United States of America, where, capitalism, that's why we're here, to create, to initiate.
To create somebody else's ability to be still, actually.
Woo!
That's another story.
Sorry, people. What, we gonna talk about that today, or are you gonna say that for another session?
I mean, here's the thing. Real talk. While we're being pushed to go back to work, other folk will be in the high tower. So we're creating the ability for them to be still and calm and say, okay, my business is good. Okay, now I'm safe because my business is making money again. I can guarantee you that the CEO of American wasn't leaving his family every single night to go fly a plane. I can guarantee you he was not at risk of catching coronavirus.
Well, prior to the emergency,
yeah. Now he might
after
have
we
been
all
around
knew it
people.
was here. Now that he know it's here, I would imagine. I don't know where he lived, but I would imagine he probably is hunkered down in a very, palatial,
comfortable place. A place where it's a little bit of space where you can get 6 feet of space in between people, possibly, maybe.
I would gather
they're pushing Americans to go back to work, knowing that this is a risk, and trying to gaslight us into believing that we are lazy if we don't want to go back to work and help this economy. Because the reality is you want to sit in the high tower while you risk my life.
My husband
or my mother's life.
A show on Netflix called The Man in the High Tower. He does. It's one of these historical revisionist shows as well. This is interesting.
Yeah. I think I saw, is that the, I think I seen that show, The Man in the High Tower.
Yeah.
But we talked about that. Yeah.
And here's the thing. And this is one of those things, it's a tale as old as time, right? So the people on the ground have to manage the experience and navigate the experience to survive.
Mm-hmm.
The man in the high tower gets to watch.
Watch.
And tell. And tell. Not just watch, he gets to watch and tell. So you have to manage the experience to survive.
Mm-hmm.
While he, they, she, it, them get to watch and tell. Now, I've always had difficulty with people who like to sit on the sidelines of an experience and watch and tell. I've never been able to
direct and manage.
Or direct and manage, right? Watch and tell, direct and manage. You know, I personally never really been able to trust somebody or with somebody that's where they gonna position themselves
without a foot in the game. Ain't been in the game.
Well, but all the time. Like all the time.
Yeah, never been in the trenches. Yeah.
We ebb and flows, and sometimes we have to roll, we elevate, but that role, that position, that strat never changes. I'm always watching and telling. I'm never having the experience. I had a friend and colleague speaking to this week who was talking about they were just shocked by some of the conversations they were having with people who were saying, we've never experienced this before. We've never experienced it before. And they themselves is like, traveled the world, worked all these things, particularly spent a lot of time in Africa and, in the countries that have gone through many natural crises and similar sort of medical, emergencies. And they gathered like, where have you been? Because I know I was living in a country when there was a medical epidemic and we had to, for a month, how can you say and he didn't get, and we had to talk about, and get to an understanding of the possibility that them saying that we never experienced it before, they never experienced this before was likely their truth, because the reality was in their lived experience, right? They hadn't experienced it. They had not been present for that experience. Whereas he had been not only just physically present in these countries and places, but then also present in the spaces with the people who were experiencing it. He wasn't walled up in a hotel, right? Mm-hmm. On the top floor. He was in the community and had to experience it. And so part of this is, there is the man in the high tower in every circumstance that has not, been present.
Or put at risk.
To experience. They haven't been present to experience. And a lot of that is condition circumstance, but for a lot of people, particularly the men in the high tower, it's intention and choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That doesn't have to do any money. You can still have money and live in the high tower and come down out that high tower, and walk amongst the people. I was listening to a podcast that Colin Powell did an interview with Carly Fiorina. And he was talking about how when he worked at the State Department, and apparently he loves cars. No surprise. He seems like a distinguished man with like cars. Mm-hmm. He used to come down in days, and go down and take a stroll in the State Department through the deck where they had the, valet the parked cars. Different kinds of cars. And for his stillness, his reflection, he liked cars, but also it's because it allowed him to talk to the people. And not, people that was coming at him because he was secretary and he was general pilot and all that. It was the parking attendants, the janitorial people, the construction people. You think about who's consistently in a parking deck, right?
Yeah.
And he would come. He was a man in the high tower. I don't know what's over there, 8th, 9th, 10th floor, whatever it is. I don't know how big the buildings is. But he would weekly, daily, regularly, intentionally, because it was a positive thing for him. It had brought him mental relaxation, the cars, the walking. But he focused on it. It was an interview. It was a great interview. You should go back and listen to it. She has her podcast. And it was that he got to connect with what was really happening in that universe over there at the State Department. Because when he goes up in the high tower, as he goes up, right? As he goes up and going back up, who jumps on and picks it? Like how they engage is relation to him being the man in the high tower. So he ain't necessarily getting your authenticness, like realness, what's really going on, how you really feel the work.
Yeah.
But when he went down and walked amongst the people, gave himself stillness and relaxation, and then also embraced the opportunity, because he could have walked amongst the people in the park in parking deck and just been like, I'm General Powell, don't talk to me, I'm on my break. But he described himself that he didn't do that. He liked engaging with them. And so that example popped in my head, but I think that is the struggle. Like that's the differential for me when I think about sort of, in moments like these, right? We look to institutions, we look to people as leaders for leadership, right? However, we're often looking to the wrong people because of the wrong things for the wrong things. Now we have the right intention because
we are definitely looking at the wrong things. We not first of all, we look at stupid stuff to sometimes look for leadership, and we trust hogwash for leadership. I knew a guy who was a civil engineer, but he was like a big supervisor where I worked, and this man was like, he spoke so well, and like he could get everybody in the room to shut up and like listen to him. He just sounded good. Sometimes people sound real good. But one time I was doing some work for him, and I told him something about, how many cubic yards of dirt we need. And he argued with me for so long about how we didn't need that much. And I said, well, sir, have you measured the hole to see what size you need? And he said, yeah, it's a blah, 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 blah. He told me what it is. But he couldn't get the cubic yard. And a civil engineer that don't know how to calculate a cubic yard ain't worth a goddamn. Ain't worth nothing. And so sometimes we got to stop listening to the people who talk a lot and start watching the people who do. And even more than that, trusting in ourselves, trusting in what we know, trusting in what that little small voice says inside you. Not that fear, because fear is it's a different vibration. But sometimes you'll get a little voice that'll tell you something. And you have to learn to listen to it, because sometimes we're not going to listen to it because we'd be like, no, I don't feel like doing that, or that takes too long, but just listen, especially now. Right now is the most important time to listen to that small voice. And
here's the thing, folks. Even if you're not, Quita is more a spiritual plane, and your language of God, or if you're not my language of deity, of divinity and source, pay attention to what she just said, because the power of listening is becoming ever and ever clear in this moment. Look at the simple things. We have people that have died based upon false information from a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Daily. From the presenting, right, on the platter, official platform, and I bring it to the platter. And now somebody's dead as a result of it. So if you're not even like on the spiritual religious tip, please
Look at statistics.
You got to be still and listen to what is real, what's
right in front of you.
Good source. It just
What's,
right in front of you.
One thing that I always trust is the numbers. The numbers always tell you the truth. No matter what is happening in the world, 1 and 1 always made 2. And we, people say math is hard, but it's only 4 things to math. It's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Every math equation is a derivative of those 4 things. So if you can understand the basics, if you can try to master addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication, you can figure out any equation, and everything else is memory of that equation. And everything in life is the same. So life is just like that. When you can sit down and see somebody talk out the side of their ass, and then next week you're gonna trust them, that don't add up.
Well, come on. But this is what I'm saying. I think we're, go back to, I use the analogy of being in a battered relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you project things about this world, facts, history, how people were killed, how people died, that are false. We all know them to be false, lies. However, I still put my trust in that institution.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now
we done seen the history tell us different. We done seen evidence of, not just evidence, but admission that, oh, we did this, we sorry. How many times do they have to bow their head and say, I'm sorry, for you to believe that, this might be like that same incident that happened 1,000 times before? But for some reason, 1,000 number 1, you think is going to be different. It ain't different. America right now is showing you what's important. They have finally, I can't think of another time where it was so glaring, where they have finally had to choose life or money. Showing you which one is more important. But you're going to still trust them when you still number 2.
Blatant. It's a blatant choice. It's not like people would say, oh, y'all go there, y'all going there, y'all go. No, we there.
We right here now.
Yeah,
we ain't no more waiting, baby.
We in it. You hear the governor? You hear the governor of, is it the lieutenant governor of Texas? Who was it? Grandparents should be willing to, prepare to be willing to, essentially.
Oh, it wasn't just him. It was Glenn Beck too.
Well, I'm sure that
what's crazy?
Things get, confusion gets echoed much easier than truth always.
And you know what else, Jeffrey, that really makes me like stop and wonder why anybody is listening anymore? When you think about it, all over the world they are saying that men are dying at a higher rate. Oh, is that they won't give us any race information. They won't, if you look on Facebook, they'll just show Black people who died of coronavirus, but they won't tell you what the actual stats is on race. But other states, other countries have told us that men are dying 2 times as much as women.
Mobility. I have access and mobility.
Yeah.
So I have been mobile, more frequent. I'm running out my house every day. All the things that I created that you don't know about.
That could still be the situation, because I do believe everybody can catch it. But however, if Trump is telling his supporters, who are white elder men being twice as likely to perish from this virus, elderly people having a rate of 10 times, 10% of them perish who over a certain age. So they got pretty high rates of transcending, I'll call it. They got pretty high rates, but he's willing to put them at risk. And that's his core group. If he don't give a shit about his core group.
Quita.
I'm here.
You bear the fruit of the tree you planted. Period. You bear the fruit of the tree you planted. Period. Moving on.
Mm-hmm.
The tree is planted. You have to only way out is to dig it up. You bear the fruit of the tree you planted. Move on.
And then you could do with it.
Into it. But for y'all out there that's trying to figure out, do I really need to be still? What we really saying? Yes. Because whether you are a spiritual or knowing person, right, religious person, whatever, the factors are in alignment, right? The things that we know to be true about our world in this moment, environmental, economical. You know, we go from crisis to crisis to make us, in part of our going from crisis to crisis, we go from forget to forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're churning in this moment over COVID-19, but COVID-19 doesn't exist in a vacuum. COVID-19 exists in the landscape of a world where we have global warming. In a world, despite all the extreme wealth that's flowing, there's growing extreme poverty. In a world that because of that extreme poverty and because of cultural strife, there is just disparate and fast and active movement and migration in ways that are killing people again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These are things, all this stuff is true and we know. And then you put on the backdrop of COVID-19, it's like, people, take a sign. Take a sign. Go in, be still. Go in, be still. Go in, be still and sit. And I know it's scary, the economics of it. I don't have children, so I can't comment on that. I send all the love and light. If I could virtually babysit, call me up. I'll do this all day.
Virtual babysitting.
But I'll perform for your children. I don't know, but be still. Be still. Be still. Because there is some, however you look at it, coming out of this, there's going to be a realignment. And coming out of that realignment, do you want to be whole or do you want to be in part? The one thing that we know about this moment, the only thing we know about this moment, if you sit and be still, you have an exponentially greater chance of coming out of this whole and not in part. Girl, that's it.